Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, where I'm your host, Elise the Untitled Anarchist Seagull, and we are, as always lately, raising funds to work on to support the crowdfunded translation project, in which I am doing the first full-length English translation of Alexandra Kollontais' Social Basis of the Female Question. I am currently raising funds for Chapter 2, and I'm about a third of the way there. You can see what the progress is at the bottom of this video screen. If you want to donate, you can go to my Patreon and become a patron, and there you can also just make a direct contribution using the tip command. Either way, it is much appreciated and helps me pay my bills while I work on this project. Now, let's see, let's get the rotisserie fired up. How's everybody doing, chat? Let me see. That's some interesting stuff. We've got, why is every company going woke with Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring? Okay, I have a very good imagination, I should note. But even I would have dismissed as just implausible the idea of giving a right-wing grifter the surname Boring. Hello. I think this is your first time joining us. Nice to see you. Ai Hiroko-san. 日本人の方ですか? じゃあ okay. Let's see, we've got It's a Cookbook, Liberal Mind Control Ops and the Breakdown of Liberalism from Caleb Muppet, highlights from the CPI Weekend Workshop and the Muppet Cult. We've got Voosh talking about how bad Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uyghur are, as if he weren't part of the problem as well. We've got Russell Brand, Jimmy Dore, and Grifters push for third-party failure by Voosh as well, whereas he's just pushing for a more general electoralist failure. And we've got Xanderhole, Anna Kasparian, leaving the left. I think we're gonna start out with, why is every company going woke? I gotta get the recording started, almost forgot that. That is so I do want to clip this stuff into content. VOD purposes. Okay, getting off to a very normal start already. Put this drink here so I don't knock it over in midstream and plug everything up. Tweet. Oh, okay. Yeah, I try to do occasionally some stuff on there. Because I follow the media there, and so I try to offer some kind of analysis other than like the stuff that you get from like either hardcore DPRK stands who mostly don't even know Korean and don't really actually follow anything going on in the country, or just the Western propaganda which just utterly demonizes the place. And I keep meaning to do more of that. I've got like a bunch of ideas for things that I want to do on the subject. But where are you joining us from?
All right, everyone, we have a special guest on Unapologetic today, but before we get into that, please like and subscribe.
Yeah, by special, we mean the guy that whose shit she's been plugging constantly in her fake-ass documentary, Unwoke Inc.
I want as many people to find this channel as possible, so you know what to do. Now, you're definitely going to recognize our guest for today. You might know...
Yeah, because if you are paying attention to her, she's just been splattering his face all over the place, because she's very impressed by the fact that, grifter of his standing is willing to come on her
know
grift
him
show.
as the CEO of Daily Wire or the founder of
Never trust a guy who wears a business shirt where the collar is a different color from where the collars are a different color from the rest of the shirt. That just never ends well.
Jeremy's razors and now Jeremy's chocolate.
Well, I mean, China is actually a lot easier to get a rounded picture of than the DPRK. I mean, the DPRK is really kind of the hardest place around. Because even China, you know, they've got social media. You can watch, you know, their social media, and sometimes stuff, you know, stories break on their social media before any kind of censorship can get to it. So there is more than one perspective being provided from within China already. Whereas in the DPRK, it's literally just state media or Western propaganda. Or, you know, you have defector accounts, and those are, you always have to be kind of careful with any kind of eyewitness thing because they can be out of date very quickly. People don't necessarily, in a place where there isn't a whole lot of, you know, ways to just independently communicate, people can often end up not, you know, having heard rumors of something and it isn't necessarily true, or sometimes it is, and there are all sorts of pressures. So you have to take every single piece of information with a much bigger grain of salt than you normally would, because, like, there is no other real-time perspective coming from the inside of the place. Bienvenue. In Stanley Robinson's... Okay, that title is familiar.
Boring.
I mean,
Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Congratulations on the release.
Thank you so much. And we're going to talk about this Unwoke Inc. documentary that we've released that you've been featured.
Yeah, we watched this like last week or maybe the week before, and it is just a big long infomercial for right-wing grifters who are launching their bullshit right-wing brands in order to just win to get the racist dollar, basically. Like, you've got white supremacist makeup, you've got racist shaving kit, you've got a fucking athletic wear from the guy who refused to kneel in support of Black Lives Matter and just sort of cross that picket line. Scab wear. And you've got some investment asshole who they like at PragerU they like to claim he wrote the book on woke. And the thing is, none of these people has ever actually managed to provide an actual definition of woke that is even slightly coherent. They all have a very clear idea of what it is. They have an obvious operative definition, but if they openly, holy shit, that symbol there is very close on the bottom right corner there. I don't know if you can see it, chat. Let me make sure. Yeah, you can see it. That is very similar to the symbol of the banned neo-Nazi group National Action in Britain. Very interesting that she picked that. But anyway, so let's see.
In just a second, but you've had some interesting news, and I must note that this is unfolding news right now on Twitter, which has just been a complete whirlwind, I imagine, for you today. You released a story about a conundrum that you're having with Twitter about featuring your documentary, What is a Woman, on the platform for free. I want you to get into that.
Okay, yeah, now, this documentary was created by white nationalist grifter Matt Walsh, and it's just basically hardcore trans-exterminationist propaganda.
Get into Elon Musk's response, and from there we'll bounce on to other subjects, but please let us know what's happened with Twitter in your documentary. All right, guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, apart from Twitter just fucking melting down.
Emily here had to pop in for a quick update. We filmed this with Jeremy when he was in the midst of the back and forth with Twitter and Elon, and we since have updates on that, so I wanted to update you on what ended up happening. There was a lot of back and forth. At first, they premiered it, and almost immediately, the documentary, What is a Woman, was labeled as having possibly...
I mean, definitely, 100%. violated Twitter's rules against hateful conduct. I mean, this is such a. I mean, they always act so fucking shocked Pikachu when they breach TOS, and then somebody says, "Hey, look, you breached TOS." I mean, this is the level of entitlement these outlets feel. Like, leftists. I mean, we joke. You go on leftist Facebook, we're like joking about the fact that, oh, we're just coming off a 30-day suspension because we had a conversation about history or something like that, or maybe somebody said men are trash and they had their entire account shut down for it, even though they were saying it in jest, and it's not entirely wrong. You know, these motherfuckers will claim to be censored because they are not getting 100% of the algorithmic boosting they feel entitled to, even though they are always getting a free pass on violating TOS and getting all kinds of boosting that leftists can't even dream of.
Violated the hateful conduct rules on Twitter. Then Elon apparently got involved.
We talking about VHL?
And said the documentary is going to show to their followers.
We are updating the system tomorrow so that those who follow will see this in their feed, but it won't be recommended to non-followers, nor will any advertising be associated with it. Yeah, because it's just basically straight up, c'est de la propagande nazie.
But it will not be shown to non-followers, and there will not be advertisements.
Oh, BHL, ces trois lettres se trouvent toujours collées à tout ce qui n'est pas bon. Tout ce qui n'est pas bon.
More back and forth ensued, and eventually it was shown without any suppression. All of the suppression was lifted off of the documentary, and Elon then tweeted it out and recommended people watch the documentary and have a conversation surrounding what was featured.
The explosive documentary. Yes, explosive in the sense of explosive diarrhea.
In What is a Woman. So a very dramatic day for, I'm sure, Jeremy Boring and all the other hosts at Daily Wire.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure they were just utterly shocked to find out that Elon Musk was going to side with them. Like, the guy who has not already, shut down their account for basically wiping their asses on TOS. I'm sure that they were they were on tenterhooks waiting to see how that shit was going to come out. Ah, damn it.
But at the end of the day, after all of the fighting and going back and forth and saying
it didn't look like there was any fighting. You didn't show any fighting. Their algorithm pointed out that it violated TOS. You brought it up with neo-Nazi lover Elon Musk. Elon Musk said, yeah, okay, we can do this. It looks like Nazi shit, and that's what Twitter is for. Of course, Twitter was for that before that. Everyone, forgets. Twitter was Fash Central before Elon Musk got there. The difference is that Elon Musk doesn't pretend to be anything else, and he's also just remarkably incompetent. I mean, Jack Dorsey followed, if you looked at his follows on Twitter, it was all the top fascist grifters, all the top far-right assholes. He was definitely, totally in sync with those pricks, which is why they often got verified, and they would not have to follow TOS, and so Twitter, which is why, leftists and LGBT people have called it the hell site for a very long time. But fucking Elon Musk, I mean, he doesn't even want to pretend to be anything else. And he's also incompetent, so he manages to just, I'm beginning to think I can barely write a Python web scraping script. In fact, I can make a Python web scraping script that does not throw any errors, but it also does not scrape any web. And I still think I could probably write a better social media app than that prick does, because he clearly doesn't have the slightest idea how to do any of this stuff. He's just sort of fucking around and finding out, oh shit, it turns out if you don't pay your AWS hosting bill, they start throttling you. Woo, who knew? They're in this to make money.
The suppression was lifted. So, interpret that how you will. Just wanted to give you the update.
Interpret that how you, where's the Where's the ambiguity? Like, I mean, is there any other way to interpret it than Elon Musk does not care about advertisers, and he also really hates trans people? And so, he, of course, an anti-trans, just fucking fash documentary is something that he's going to promote. I mean, like, what other way is there to interpret it than that? It's a pretty straightforward event.
Date.
Well, so we're shooting this episode on June 1st, Thursday, and today is the one-year anniversary of the release of What is a Woman, Matt Walsh's seminal documentary. I think one of the most important.
Seminal. Yeah, that's a term that in a certain sense I can go with it. Yes. I mean, he was just kind of getting his end away all over the screen. Pieces of
work that we've put out as a company, or most important pieces of cultural work in the last year by anyone.
But that's saying something.
And what is a woman really? It just asks the question of our time. What is a woman? Which, you know.
Well, how is that the question of our time? I thought maybe the question of our time was, what are we going to do about climate change? You think maybe we've had enough of this whole capitalism thing? They do seem to be running the planet into the ground. How are we going to avoid nuclear apocalypse? I thought those were the questions of our time. And maybe, like, how do you do mirror glaze? A mirror glaze ganache? Because my sister does that amazingly, and I'd really like to learn to do it. See, all of those are more important questions of our time than this what is a woman bullshit. We already, like, literally there was no... This is the reason they do this. I'm sure people in chat know this. I'm sure most people who are watching this know this. But in case somebody isn't and is watching this, the reason they do this is they want it to seem like it's a philosophical debate. Because they want to stay as far away from the actual stakes of what they're doing. Because they know the minute... It's like, okay, it's about 15, 20 years ago. Some polling by Frank Luntz's organization on Israel got leaked. And it was all about polling and focus groups, all about how to do pro-Israeli propaganda effectively. And one of the things they said was, don't touch the subject of house demolitions in East Jerusalem, no matter what, because literally no demographic finds this favorable, and nobody can, then no excuse plays for it. Everybody thinks it's horrible, you just can't talk about this, you have to stay away from it. And it's the exact same thing with this trans extermination as propaganda. If they openly, if they talk about what the actual stakes are, that they're actually trying to make life impossible for actual people who are just trying to live their fucking lives, that they know they lose. Even the people who are most inclined to like what they're offering here don't actually like it the minute you put it in terms of the actual, you know, real life effect it has on living human beings that they don't have a problem with. So they have to make it a philosophical debate.
Would have seemed like an absurd topic.
Well, and the funny thing is, of course, there is a whole, there is a whole sort of, what would be the term, effluent du féminisme. There's like this effluent off of 1970s feminism, these TERFs, who have openly decided they're going to just work together with far-right groups in the U.S. with like groups like Hands Across the Aisle, which brings white nationalist TERFs and fundamentalist Christians together in their hatred of trans women. And they basically decide, and so now the right-wingers, their whole thing is they pretend, look, these are the actual feminists, these people who like hate everything that's good and decent and seem to love fundamentalist Christians and take their money and do what they're told by them. Those are the real feminists. I mean, and of course, and they've been doing this for like since 2016 is when this became an official strategy, and it's amazing how few times that gets mentioned. It's the Values Voter Summit 2016. It is a keynote address, I believe it was keynote anyway, by Meg Kilgannon, where she says, "Look, we've lost on same-sex marriage. There's no way that fight is winning for us. The place to go to drive the wedge in on LGBT rights is by attacking trans people and using fake feminist arguments to do it. And that's been what they've done ever since. And that's where this "what is a woman" bullshit is going on. That's why "what is a woman" is the same bullshit that they're using over in Britain as well. I'm sure les terres françaises font la même chose.
Topic for a documentary 5 years ago, and now seems like the most important thing we could be talking about. The film was a huge success for the Daily Wire. You know, it's been seen by millions.
Now I'm curious. Huge success for the Daily Wire. How many views did "What is a Woman" documentary views? Okay. According to the Catholic news agency, 177.2 million views on their Twitter post. And of course, these companies are very tight-lipped about what exactly a view really means. I mean, that's certainly... and let's remember, this is after getting boosted by the guy who literally controls what everyone gets to see on Twitter.
Of people already, and to celebrate its 1 year anniversary, we thought, well...
And views does not mean people watched it all the way. Like, if you go to my YouTube channel and you watch the VOD of this and you just you click away a second later, I got a view off of that as far as I can tell. If I do that as logged in as the person whose channel that is, I get a view for that. A view does not mean that somebody sat through the whole thing. That could include misclicks.
What could
it almost certainly does include
put the film out for free for 24 hours. Up until now, you've had to come to Daily Wire Plus and become a subscriber in order to see it. So we wanted to celebrate by letting more people see it.
I celebrate the fact that they decided to paywall it, actually, because the number of people who will watch this stuff by accident, if it's free, and the number of people who will pay actual money to watch this shit, that Venn diagram is there's a lot of non-overlapping area.
Given Elon Musk's sort of public commitments to free speech since purchasing Twitter,
you mean like when he banned the word cisgender?
The perfect platform for this. Obviously, if you use YouTube, if you use Facebook, other social platforms right now, they're incredibly hostile to any conversations about transgenderism or radical gender theory.
No, they aren't. First of all, you're more likely to get banned from pretty much all these platforms for supporting trans rights than for opposing it. Even though the TOS says that supporting trans rights is a fine thing to do, and being transphobic isn't, you're still more likely to get banned if you take a pro-trans view and are critical of transphobes. But, I mean, they have a huge platform in every single one of these things, and it takes real effort for them to get banned. I mean, it's not enough for them to be TOS. They have to print out TOS and make a pornographic video of them ripping it up and doing unspeakable things with it, and then put it on a channel marked for children, and that'll get them banned or maybe
more
demonetized.
Broadly, and they'll tend to DM.
Ob unsensibel ist, weiß ich eigentlich nicht. Also, der ist ein Arschloch. Also, seine Sensibilität oder, naja, sofern vorhanden, interessiert mich eigentlich nicht die Bohne. Der ist ein Fascho, der will, und im Moment ist es halt Mode, Transmenschen anzugreifen, weil man sie als weiches Ziel ausgemacht hat. Und darum geht es ja. Also, der ist einfach ein Riesenarschloch und Faschos, also Fascho-Propaganda bringt das große Geld rein. Also, es ist ja wirklich unglaublich, was für Zahlen die da machen. Es gab ja dieses andere Arschloch von Steven Crowder, der Komödiant ohne Witze, der ein Angebot in Höhe von 57 Millionen Dollar abgeschlagen hat. Abschlägig. beschieden hat. Der hat das abgelehnt. So viel, also einfach so, weil er also mit irgendwelchen Spitzfindigkeiten des Vertrags nicht einverstanden war, hat er 57 Millionen Dollar einfach so abgelehnt, weil so viel Dollar da einfach in Luft kreist. Also, das sind halt irgendwelche Hochstapler, denen im Endeffekt scheißegal ist, wem sie schaden. Oder sie schaden einfach gern manchen Leuten. Und ja, also, ich finde, das Schicksal Julius Streichers wäre ihnen auch gebührend.
Emphasize, throttle, that kind of content. So we thought, well, Twitter's the exact right place. We went to Twitter, talked to them about this plan. They loved it. In fact, they offered to sell us We went to Twitter, talked to them about this plan. They loved it. In fact, they offered to sell us a fairly expensive block that they offer, which would allow us to have a great viewing experience for our members.
Well, I mean, as great a viewing experience as you can have when it's Daily Wire content, anyway.
This live stream. And for the first 10 hours that the film was available for free on the platform, they would let every single person who used Twitter during those.
I wonder what this plan did. What effect that had on the bandwidth throttling that was happening because fucking Elon Musk didn't pay his bills.
10 hours know about the live stream. So it seemed like a huge opportunity for us to really get the word out there about the film and engage in a pretty broad conversation about this really important topic. We signed the IO. We made the deal. Twitter said, hey, send us the film. We've never seen it. We know it's controversial, but we want to know sort of what to be prepared for. Still all hands on deck. We sent them the film. They called back and said, whoa, no, we take it all back. Not only will we not sell you.
Well, yeah, because it's just fucking Nazi shit. So there are clearly Elon Musk didn't fire everybody. So, I mean, and it's created this wonderful experience where, you have, like, some aspect of Twitter as we're familiar with it operating, and then Elon Musk gets a fucking bug up his ass and says, no, we're going to do it all the way, we're going to do it the other way around, and it just goes to show you what a wonderful thing it is that critical pieces of online infrastructure are under unaccountable private control. Wonderful capitalist system we've got here.
The block that we had sold you. But if you put this content on the platform at all, we will label it hateful conduct. We will remove the share button.
Well, because it is hateful conduct. You know that.
It as part of our speech but not reach program. We said, well, what does that mean? How much are you going to throttle it? They said, well, if Matt Walsh puts his documentary on his own Twitter account, his own followers will not see it. That's how much we're talking about throttling it. And we were shocked. I mean, obviously.
Why would you be shocked? You've got lawyers. They've read TOS. Yeah, if they're actually shocked, that would be a real indictment of these terms of service. Because, like, if I make a video where, and let me just put it this way, I'm being careful coming up with a hypothetical example here, because I'm pretty sure the algorithm might have a go at me over a hypothetical, and I'd have to, like, fight to get my fucking channel back. It's happened to bigger leftist creators than me more than once. But, if I did a thing, about how, suggesting that some kind of violence, some kind of revolutionary violence might be an appropriate, consequence for putting out this sort of horrible propaganda. If I were to say something like that, I would immediately be, I would be shut out of my account. It would get deleted. People have been deleted for less on the left on YouTube. But they're shocked that a video that is nothing but, like, transphobic lies about trans people, that is supposed to incite people to do violence against them, that the TOS would be enforced against them. if they're genuinely shocked, that says everything. And they should not ever claim to be fighting censorship, because clearly, if they're shocked by that, that means they know perfectly well they get away with murder on these platforms.
About moving Twitter toward being a true free speech platform. Obviously, he's not going to let people engage in illegal activity on the platform, but in terms of political debate, he's been very clear. Twitter had very publicly removed quote-unquote misgendering, which is a really Orwellian term in and of itself.
It's always wonderful when these people try to provide some exegesis of Orwell.
But they had removed that from their policy. And we reminded them of this, and they said, well, yes, we did remove misgendering from our policies particularly, but we still consider it hate speech under other parts of our policy.
Yeah, I mean, and in fact, they also do have to consider the fact that this is being shown in numerous different jurisdictions, and there are, in fact, jurisdictions where it would potentially be a criminal offense to show that thing, because it is just straight up incitement against trans people. It is straight up hateful propaganda. There are jurisdictions where you could not get away with showing that potentially without having to worry about getting correspondence from the DPP.
And so, again, we were in complete shock, didn't know what to do. We worked with Twitter for the last week to try to get them to see why this policy was bad, why it was against sort of their stated and very public commitments to freedom of speech. Couldn't get them to move, and so today,
because they also, this is funded by ads. Your stuff is fucking toxic. No advertiser. The reason you've got all these fake ass right wing brands that are just MLM grifts to a great extent, and probably aren't going to last. The whole reason that's there is because no fucking mainstream advertiser wants to touch this stuff with a 10-foot pole.
Unfortunately, I had to sort of make public what had happened. There was no way we had announced publicly that we were going to be doing something like this. So there was no way to let Twitter off the hook. I had to address it publicly, and I did so in a 16-tweet thread.
A 16-tweet thread.
7 o'clock this morning. And as you say, Elon, only a few hours ago, responded, said it was a mistake, said that Twitter was, in fact, committed to being a platform in which these sorts of issues could be debated. Said that he didn't agree with
Which is to say, and we get a really accurate understanding of what the far-right meaning of debate is here. Because he specifically said that key terms of the discussion are banned on the platform. Cis and cisgender are banned. These are you can't have this discussion without them. Unless you're just putting out Nazi shit. So, debate, in this context, means they get to say their shit uninterrupted, and we get banned if we point out why it's a lie.
I did misgendering personally, thought it was rude, but did not think that it was the kind of thing that Twitter should take action against. What will happen next? I don't know. At 8 o'clock Eastern tonight, we're going to air the film on Twitter and see what happens. They still have not removed, as of the time that we're recording this omelet, they've not removed the warnings that they've already put on the clips.
Because they know they're going to get a huge amount of shit from people if this plays. Some people, a lot of people have auto preview videos, and if they don't have some kind of warning on there to prevent people automatically seeing this, who don't necessarily want to see this, they're going to have just a huge amount of correspondence to be dealing with as a result of that.
Not taken away the throttled sort of traffic.
See, I think they know exactly what they're saying. I think they know precisely what they're saying. They know they're not being censored, that in any normal sense of the word. But they feel that they are entitled to 100% of the bandwidth of the discourse. They consider it an imposition if they have to share it, even 1% of it with somebody else. And that's what's going on here. And the thing is, they have the overtune window of the general public has moved so far that even companies run by people who probably have just as shitty views on this as these two don't want to lose money by publicly espousing them.
As part of their speech but not reach policy. So I honestly don't know. I mean, Elon's response, I'm grateful for it. So far, there's been no action. Hopefully, by the time people see this, that.
Well, that's because Elon doesn't know how to do anything, and the people you've been discussing, you are so frustrated with, are the only people left at Twitter who know how to make Twitter work.
Won't be the case.
Right. This is such an interesting time to be online and to try to have these sorts
Yeah,
of
it's
conversations.
fascinating.
And for the audience, you can judge for yourself whether or not you deem this to be hateful content. It was a steadfast response from Elon Musk, which I'm
I mean, like, why can't, I mean, the fucking dishonesty gets me. It's like, why can't you just own that it is hateful content? I mean, there was a time when people like this would just be open about that. You know, when, I mean, they would tattoo Has, Ha, SS on their knuckles and shit like that. To make it clear, they know they're being hateful, and that's the whole point of what they're doing. And now they have to act all offended that somebody says this is hateful, like they're shocked about it? Yeah, just own it, for fuck's sake.
proud of, and I hope the documentary gets to see its time on the platform, because I think there are so many people that deserve to get into the discussion that is brought about in What is a Woman. I want to hone in on a part of Elon Musk's response and sort of extrapolate it to talk about other corporations that are engaged in this sort of activity. He says this was a mistake made by many people at Twitter. There's this idea that either this corporate wokeism is coming from this hierarchy of ESG and it's being pushed upon the corporations.
Hierarchy of ESG? What the hell is a hierarchy of ESG? Eichhörnchenschutz
in order to garner more profits. And there's others saying that there are fringe activists working within these corporations that are allowed to go over the rules that have been stated by the company itself.
Except the literal problem is that what you're doing is contrary to the stated rules of the company itself. And here, I wonder if there might be another explanation. That it isn't, you know, a conspiracy of fringe activists or the ESG hierarchy, whatever the hell that is. What if it's just the general public doesn't like your take on this? The general public actually it is not with you on this because actually you're catering to a political minority. And so people who are trying to make money from the general public don't want to alienate them by saying things that most people recognize are horrible.
And allow things like what's happened at Twitter to happen. What is your main theory as to what's happening? Because it's not just on Twitter, which we have this developing story that we'll update you guys on, but it's Target, it's the Dodgers, it's Chick-fil-A, it's Kohl's, it's ESPN. We have...
Chick-fil-A hasn't even stopped donating money to homophobic charities. I love how it seems to me, I said this when Tim Pool was pretending to be appalled by this. I think what they're trying to do here is change the narrative. This is like how because if right-wingers are pissed, they've noticed, maybe, that, liberals can often be won over to do things if they're told that it pisses off right-wingers. Like, if right-wingers go around saying, Joe Biden is a communist, you know, a certain amount of liberals will be like, oh, he must be doing something good right now. And it's like, no, he really isn't. He has done nothing to earn this hate. He has done, actually, he would have every right to be somewhat shocked that he is getting the hatred of these people because he's doing exactly what they want. But a lot of liberals don't think about it that far. They just say, oh, right-wingers don't like this. Maybe that means they've done the right thing, and they will start going over and shopping from them, or whatever. I mean, that's like... I tend to think that is probably what's going on here. I have no direct evidence of it, but it's... I mean, and of course, they do just kind of pretend to be pissed off every time a company goes woke, which, I mean, like, if they refuse to have, like, swastika merchandise or something like that, then it's woke.
We have hundreds of examples of this happening right now. What do you think the main source of these woke campaigns is?
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear what the main source is, because he couldn't come up with a good answer with this in the fucking documentary.
Well, I think main source is actually, I don't know that there's a main source.
Well, I mean, you could look at the polls where it turns out the general public isn't with you on these things, and that you generally do better to market to most people rather than marketing to people most people find kind of abhorrent.
I think that we've allowed an entire generation to come of age believing this nonsense, and now they're entering the workforce. They're making their voices heard.
So what you're saying is actually you've lost this debate. You lost the debate fair and square, and now the mainstream opinion. See, this is what he's actually doing what mostly these people avoid admitting, which is they avoid admitting that actually they are arguing against the mainstream opinion. If you listen to them, they will often say, "You see, you guys are in the majority, really." I mean, there's no evidence that they are. In fact, the evidence is all to the contrary, but they love to claim that they're in the majority and everything. And therefore, there has to be some weird ass conspiracy to explain why these companies are not just, marketing exclusively to the quartering and his fan base. You know, so, but I mean, he right there, he just admitted it. There's been a generational shift in views, where you have, 3 generations now coming up that aren't appalled by the existence of LGBT people, who actually think maybe it's kind of bad that the cops go around, can get away with murder as long as they stick to killing black and indigenous people, or the occasional communist for a treat. They don't want to admit that, so now they have to make it sound sinister.
Heard because we've spent the last 25 years really developing this very litigious HR culture in our country. People who
see, I think they care. I think you have you have basically two different people. They're the people who are just doing this for money and they would do anything. Like, I think Anna Kasparian, for example, she doesn't give a shit. She and Cenk Uygur will follow the money, and the money is very clearly with this far right bullshit, so they're doing the far right bullshit. But I mean, there are a lot of people who are in this specifically because they like the consequences. They're inciting the murder of LGBT people because they want LGBT people dead. I mean, and a lot of them are doing that.
own and operate.
And they won't own that if you bring it up. They will pretend that they just couldn't possibly, that it's just implausible to suggest that those are the real stakes here. But they know perfectly well. And one of the reasons you know that they know perfectly well is that every time somebody says one of these transphobic talking points, at least they'll get, if they have any reach at all, they'll get like 100 well-meaning liberals saying, yeah, actually this isn't true, and politely explaining to them, as if they just don't know it, like they did with fucking Anna Transphobian when she decided to pretend to be appalled about birthing people 11 months after she explained why that moral panic was bullshit. So they've all heard. If they did not know what the stakes were, if they did not know what the facts were, they've had this stuff explained to them a million times by now. They're promoting violence against people either because it makes money or because they actually just want that violence, or because both.
These organizations are very afraid to stand up to 22-year-old interns.
They're very afraid to stand up to 22-year-old interns who they aren't paying and they can fire for no reason.
Afraid to stand up to, ironically, their least valuable employees.
Yeah, ironically, in the sense that this is actually completely implausible. I mean, anyone who's ever been an intern knows that your opinion is worth slightly less than that of the rats in the shitter.
And so as a result, we just see this virus really spreading at an alarming rate. Do I think that ESG contributes? Absolutely. Do I think that there's a sort of top-down conspiracy to infiltrate corporate America with these ideas, from organizations like BlackRock and others? Yes, absolutely. Do I?
Yeah. They absolutely. They absolutely cannot. He's walking this back already because what he was acknowledging in his backhanded sort of sinister sort of a way is that actually these people, this is a generational shift in opinion, and they're just outside the Overton window at this point. Sorry. He immediately follows that up by outright saying it's a top-down conspiracy, and it's like, is it not? See, you could believe that if it was actually causing them to lose money, and it isn't. In fact, the exact opposite. I mean, there is this, Tim Pool likes to say, go woke, go broke. It's just, it isn't borne out, which is why companies are still doing it. Why companies still are not, trying to court the neo-Nazi dollar, except for, some very niche companies. They're not doing that, and they're not trying to associate their major brands with it, because they know it is toxic and they will lose money. I mean, there is very much a phenomenon of go fast, lose cash. There are plenty of examples of that, many more than you can find to substantiate the nonsense about go broke, woke, go broke.
I think that that's the sum of it. No, I think that it really is coming from all different angles.
So if there was some evidence that they were hemorrhaging money as a result of acknowledging LGBT people exist and marketing to black people or whatever, then you could start to say this is a bit weird that they're continuing to do this, because aren't they supposed to be making money? But the problem is, and the reason that this just doesn't work and they have to hem and haw around their explanations for this, is precisely that they're not losing money. They're doing quite well off of it. And therefore, clearly, there is the market that they are marketing to.
Take a privately owned company like Twitter. Well, Elon Musk isn't allowing this to happen at his company because of some nefarious ESG plot. He may be sensitive to the fact that advertisers do an awful...
Okay, I need to know what the hell ESG is. Keep on talking about this. Environmental, social, and corporate governance, also known as environmental social governance, is an approach to investing. So, again, when you say that, what you're saying is that investors, i.e. the people that capitalism is all about, the people capitalism exists for, have decided to invest in a particular way. And now investors, for the most part, are trying to invest in things that they're going to make money off of. They may be wrong about that, they may be right about it, but that is the idea of investing. You're not investing to lose money. So even if you try to make it about, environmental and social governance, investing conspiracies or something like that, what you're saying is that investors and fund managers and all those people have found that the smart money is on, social washing and greenwashing. Exactly. That the smart money is on pretending to be from the same moral universe as the majority of your customers, as opposed to these fucking freaks.
Well, advertisers are inherently risk averse. They do an awful lot.
Yeah, they're risk averse. That's the point. That's why what you're saying makes no sense. If this were a bad idea, if this were something that they could not come up with a reasonable explanation for, if they didn't think there was a market for the thing that you're trying to turn into a conspiracy, then they wouldn't be doing it. There's a reason that it's taken this long for advertising to even timidly acknowledge that there are LGBT people. I mean, when I was coming up, we didn't have that. When I was coming up, in 80s and 90s, we might, in the late 90s, it started to change a little bit. But in the 80s and early 90s, the most you'd get is a very stereotypical gay man in a sitcom, and he was totally played for laughs. So that was all the acknowledgement that queer people existed in the entire U.S. media. So, this is just, it's so fucking...
to enforce this kind of stuff. He may also just be dealing with sort of holdover employees from the old regime that he hasn't been able to clear out that.
Exactly. He had to keep on some people, so at least a couple of people know how to turn the machines on and off.
I would say that that's somewhat what's implied by his response, but you look at some of these other organizations, and I'm not sure. Some of them, I think, are true believers. There's no other explanation for why Target would do
They like money. Target likes money. Maybe the explanation is that Target figures this will make them a lot of money.
The things that Target's doing. That's not just corporate policy that's playing out. It's an actual corporate strategy to very publicly, in a very forward-facing way.
Yes, a corporate strategy to do what? What can you tell us? What corporations are trying to do in capitalism? What's their goal, Mr. Boring? What's the what would that strategy be for? I'm gonna guess it's something to. It rhymes with funny. I think it's on the tip of my tongue.
Pander to the worst elements in society, and companies like Chick-fil-A hiring this head of DEI to work for the company. Chick-fil-A also, I believe, a privately held company, so I don't think that that's some giant ESG plot. I think
probably they realized that by doing this, they could confuse a few liberals into coming back into their shops and buying their stuff because they think that they're changing their ways, when there's absolutely nothing to say that. I mean, I'm pretty sure if they had actually decided to become officially pro-LGBT or whatever, that I would have heard of it. And I haven't heard shit.
I think that it's just you hire people into these roles and they wind up having power inside of your company. It really is, it's a multi-front battle for anyone who's trying to keep this out of their organization.
Well, yeah, because if you keep this out of your organization, what you're also keeping out of your organization is money. So, I mean, the whole reason that Elon Musk has been trying to come up with one failed business model after another to cut out the advertisers is that the reason fucking Jack Dorsey, who's also fash, actually cracked down on some of the worst neo-Nazis on the platform, was precisely that advertisers, who his company relies on for a lot of their revenue, were saying, this is toxic for our brands, we can't be associated with this shit. So Elon Musk, because they would lose money by being associated with this, because again, most people hate people like this. Most people think that they're full of shit. Most people have not heard of them, but would be like immediately repulsed to hear what they actually believe. So, and advertisers know this, and they're trying to get most people's money. So they try not to be connected to this stuff. So Elon Musk's whole thing has been trying to find a way to replace ad revenue as a business model, and each version of it so far seems to have completely failed, because nobody's gonna fucking pay for Twitter.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are overwhelmed. One of the main comments that I get when we talk about these companies is, I don't know where to shop anymore. I don't know where to go. Everywhere I go, there is something happening. And
everywhere I go, I see the same.
There's another company to stop supporting. And we go through this idea.
God, I mean, it's like liberal, it's like the far right has discovered liberal consumerism.
In this new documentary that's out now called Unwoke Inc., which you are featured in, and I'm wondering what your prescription is for people who are sharing this concern of...
I'm guessing that we're about to hear about all the fucking same grifty brands that were plugged in that infomercial Unwoke Inc. If you go to my channel, you can see the video I did on that, incidentally. If you missed that on live, it is one of the top videos in the channel. Little plug there.
Being overwhelmed, and we watched a boycott happen with Bud Light that was wildly successful.
No, it wasn't, actually. I mean, they keep on pointing to some stock figures, but they actually, I mean, there's no evidence that the campaign was at all successful. In fact, the biggest joke of the whole thing is that these right-wingers who are boycotting, when this right-wing boycott of Bud Light was going on, the beer that replaced it as the best-selling beer in the U.S. was Modelo. Modelo is owned by the same parent company that is Bud Light's parent company. Anheuser-Busch's parent company, Modelo's parent company, same company. So they're not losing any money on any of it.
among conservatives and just anti-woke individuals here in the United States of America. Is that the future for these corporations who are coming out with this messaging?
Well,
no, obviously not, or they would have stopped doing it.
I want to celebrate what happened. You know, the right did mobilize against Bud Light in a major way.
Yeah, and it was an absolute joke.
You know, I think that Bud Light as a brand may actually be finished. So you can't go into a bar today and order a Bud Light.
Garth Brooks specifically made a point of announcing that Bud Light would be on tap at the fucking bar that he just opened. Or, I think it was Garth Brooks. It's one of the big, big country stars. It's not a genre I really follow, so I might be confusing him with someone else. But one of the country bigs, anyway, just, you know, in the midst of this whole thing said, yeah, we're going to have Bud Light on tap. And, I mean, that is a musical genre that very heavily appeals to the sort of people this appeals to. And, which is another way of saying, from a marketing standpoint, apparently, even when you look at the sort of brands that you would, or, you know, cultural products that you would expect right-wingers to be coalescing around, you still find that actually this stuff is falling flat.
You'd be afraid of what other people would think about you. You look at the store shelves, and all the beer was sold out for the Memorial Day weekend, except Bud Light.
Well, also, Bud Light sucks. Bud Light is horrible beer. It isn't even beer. That's just golden showers for people who are overheated.
I think real damage has been done to that brand, but was it a successful boycott? Well, that's a different question altogether.
Well, I mean, if real damage has been done to the brand, then you'd think it's successful. Except that apparently everybody was buying Modelo instead. So the same people are making money anyway.
Bud Light used to be the number one beer in the country. As of this morning, it's Modelo, which is owned by the same company. And
yeah, exactly. Which is why what you're doing is fucking pointless.
Anheuser-Busch. So did we actually extract any damage from Anheuser-Busch? It doesn't appear so. It seems like we just transferred the revenue from one part of their business to another.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, Modelo is not going to do a fucking Prager, you know, like, do an anti-woke fucking branding campaign. Because again, they're in the business of getting the most money possible for the most number of people possible. That's the idea. They're trying to make money, and that's a way to ensure that most people don't want anything to do with your fucking brand.
Another interesting detail, though, that I do think that we can learn something from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Budejovic's Budweiser, the real Budweiser, I absolutely love. Have you ever had Budweiser Tmavi, la bière obscure de Budweiser? Oh, c'est fucking formidable.
From the Bud Light controversy is this. Just as Bud Light's revenue dropped by 25%, Coors' revenue increased by 25%. Or, not their revenue, I apologize, it may have been their market share. What does that say? It says that in order for a boycott...
It says that you are just citing random statistics that may or may not be true and probably are multifactorial.
Boycott to be successful, there actually has to be a readily available alternative. If there's not a readily available alternative, you're not...
Incidentally, I mean, Coors is owned by the Coors family, and the Coors Foundation associated with them are one of the biggest funders of far-right bullshit in the country. And going back decades. I mean, if there's some fast shit out there, they've probably kicked some money towards it. It's the Coors Foundation. If you go on SourceWatch and check it out, you'll see just how much money they throw around to far-right causes.
To get a successful boycott, people cannot stop shopping at Target because they have to shop somewhere. In order to have an effective boycott against...
Well, they're just starting to learn about boycotts.
Target, you need Walmart not to be woke. And unfortunately, Walmart is very woke.
Yeah, because, again, they don't want to lose money, and there's no way anyone can sustain a business model on your nasty ass.
It used to be one of the great conservative companies in the country. It is no longer.
Well, it is in every other sense. I mean, they treat their workers like shit. They treat their suppliers like shit. They don't pay worth a shit. I mean, it is in all senses a great conservative employer. Except the sense that they don't want to lose money by exclusively catering to the PragerU Daily Wire audience.
So I think one of the most important messages that I try to get out there to conservatives is you have to start businesses. You have to create those alternatives.
Yeah, because the idea is if you have some small niche right-wing brand, then you don't need necessarily this huge market share. Then you've got this ready-made media infrastructure for your grift, and I mean, nobody will even notice that you're probably just repackaging the same shit that people are getting at the supermarket anyway. But I mean, unless you are cultivating an exclusive audience of far right assholes with money, and you specifically, and that is the only market share you're ever going for, and you're small enough that you don't need more market share than that, then you're basically fucked. And these big companies can't survive on that. They'd be losing hundreds of billions if they tried to survive on this audience.
If there were an alternative to Target today, that alternative...
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's the same shit that's happening with basically everything. I mean, you have it. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, a lot of the best Irish stouts are now owned by some Belgian company or something like that. Fortunately, the stout's still good. But yeah, I mean, shit is just constantly getting bought up. And then the export Staropramen, for example, is really, I mean, that's just nowhere near as good as the stuff that you get in, that you get like in Prague, for example. Det faller mig inte I smaken. Das ist nicht nach meinem Geschmack. I like good beer, which is to say, I wasn't buying Bud Light before not buying Bud Light was a fash thing, because because it sucks. I mean, first of all, it's Bud, and second of all, it's light. Like, it's like all the sorts of it's like everything that is wrong with beer. But, I mean, give me a decent Welsh ale, not S.A. Brains. Give me Belgian beer. C'est marre de 1060, quoi que ce soit. La goût de l'eau.
Alternative would be thriving, and a boycott against Target would be successful. If we owned a conservative beer brand, it would be the thing that was really growing and increasing right now.
No, it wouldn't, actually. I mean, okay, the thing about growing... KCD did a great comic explaining this. The thing about growing is that the smaller you are, the bigger your growth is. Like, if you have a cult that's 2 people and you get 3 people, holy shit, you had 30% growth in 24 hours. 33%, actually. That's huge. You're the fastest growing cult in the world. Or whatever. I mean, growth is always relative to what's already there. And so, of course, this is going to be growing. Especially because they have this ready-made infrastructure to advertise it to far-right assholes who don't care that all they're probably doing is taking Bud Light and putting it in new cans.
Instead of just other beers that are owned by the same very small handful of mostly woke companies being the beneficiaries in some ways of the boycott. It's really just a shell game at this point for them, not a successful boycott.
So he's trying to figure out a way to make it an even better grift.
In the final analysis, we have to be creative. We have to build a future, and if we do that, then I think
you're literally you can't be building a future because your whole brand is like basically denying everybody a future.
Boycotts.
And I know you may not be a fan of making predictions here, but what you're speaking about sounds to me like what many have theorized, a parallel economy of people just going to companies that support their values.
Yeah, a parallel economy of nothing but right-wing assholes. I don't see that happening. I mean, outside of, like, the parallel economic universe that, like, billionaires live in, and pretty much all of them are far-right to some extent, they, at the very least, aren't particularly hostile to the far-right. Sometimes they're quite openly friendly to the far-right. But and they, of course, they live in another universe to the extent that if you base, there was a leaked memo from Citigroup back around the time of the global financial crisis, the Plutonomy memo, and it's and what they talk about is how if instead of if you defy the conventional investing wisdom of having a diversified portfolio or whatever, and stick to investing in brands that specifically cater to rich ghouls, you will do better than most. Precisely because rich ghouls are the only people who have any kind of economic stability and any kind of signs of improvement at the moment.
And things sort of split. Do you think that?
Oh, I love a good cider. Yeah, North American, I mean, the thing with North America is a lot of the time you get apple cider, it isn't the kind of cider, it isn't cidre. It's not the kind of cider that you get if you order a cider in England or Wales, for example. I like both kinds. I like the kind of apple cider you get here in the fall. I think it's very tasty, but I love a good craft cider. Like Lily the Pink, for example, is one of my absolute favorites. I remember having one. I have to be careful with cider because it is so easy to forget that you're drinking something alcoholic when you drink cider. And I was out with a friend of mine one night at the pub, and I'd had like three pints of cider, and I was just trying out because they had the City Arms in Cardiff. They had this amazing cider draft list. I mean, probably the best in South Wales that I'd seen. And so I wanted to keep trying. There's one called Gladiator I hadn't had yet. And so I go, yeah, could I get a pint of the Gladiator, mate? And he's like, actually, we only really sell that in halves. And okay, I'll have a half. And I'm at this point, I'm complètement bourré already, but just not really feeling it in a very chill mood. And he's like, well, the reason that we only sell it in halves is it is 9%. And it's like, oh shit. Okay, maybe I should slow this one down then. But God, I mean, cider goes down so ridiculously easily, and so much of it is just so delicious.
That's
Except
going to be
Strongbow's
the
shite.
end-all be-all of what's happening with corporations and companies? We just go to our separate camps? Or is there going to be a time where we, as companies, decide, you know what, we're just going to do what we set out to do, and it's to create XYZ product, and
Well, what they set out to do is making money, and you're like acting surprised that they're trying to do
sell
that.
it to the American people?
Right. Well, obviously no one knows the future, right? But I would say this, that if we create alternatives, it can be very lucrative for us, which
Yeah. I mean, because you're grifters.
we've played out here at the Daily Wire with the success of some of our alternative startup brands, still nascent, but already making 8 figures worth of revenue every year. But what I really think is that if you take enough market share away from some of these major corporations, you might change their behavior. And if we think about it,
Yeah, but you're not gonna have none of your shit is going to be big enough to actually take market share away from any of the corporate behemoths that have decided that the smart money is not alienating most people.
like Disney. Disney has the greatest content library.
Never had
ever
Canadian
created
cider.
in
That's
the history of man. The
great
best
ale in
IP,
Quebec,
the
though.
best creative
That's
content that has ever existed in mass exists at Disney. It would take us a century to replicate it. That's how long Disney has had to create it. So if we had 1 century,
And Disney was started by a guy who was like 2 degrees short of being a fascist. Why do you think that they've decided to to change their approach and try to engage with the majority of the public? Couldn't possibly be because they figured out that's profitable, could it?
odds, and we're above average in our creation, and fortune favored us, we might get to where Disney is 100 years from now. Wouldn't a better goal be take 10% of the market share away from Disney over the next 10 years and force them to bring that content library back into play?
Yeah, except that's not what's going to happen, and you know that perfectly well. That's why you're talking about 100 years. This is just straight up grifting here. I mean, this is nothing. I mean, yeah, they'll probably use the money they get from fash people for their fash fake products for fashy shit. But for the most part, this is just grifting. They've figured out that they have a very malleable audience who gets mad at the things that they tell them to get mad at. And if they say, you want to stick it to, the woke conspiracy, then you've got to buy this, like, fucking Julius Streicher brand beer or whatever.
For the broad middle of America, we may still have to put up with some things that we don't like, but if we can take them off of this incredibly radical path where they're actually promoting transgenderism to children, which is, it should be criminal. That's how far Disney has strayed.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about here. That's him explaining the real stakes here. If it were up to him, acknowledging that trans people exist in the presence of children would be a crime. And that's not far-fetched. That's fucking... That law exists. Versions of that law, like being trans in public, in something that fits in an extremely broad and flexible definition of performance, is already a crime in Tennessee and Montana and I think also Florida. That stuff's actually going on.
Bring them back to a more central place, then we could have something else that America needs. Because do we need alternatives for conservatives? Yes, but what we need
How about alternatives to conservatives? That's what I need. I need alternatives to conservatives. Can we swap them out for something decent?
Most to survive as a nation is a common culture, a cultural space that isn't purely political, that isn't completely bifurcated. I happen to think that the best way to do that is to further bifurcate economically right now.
Yes, because that's going to make you a lot of money.
But my goal isn't just a conservative shop at Jeremy's Razors and liberal shop at Harry's Razors. My goal is that...
Yeah, they're probably buying the same fucking razor.
Jeremy's Razors does incredibly well, and it either becomes the...
What why you're selling razors? You've got a fucking beard. That's how much of a grift this is. And then fucking The Quartering also flogs razors on his stream. And you've seen, his degree of kemptness, I'm sure.
The place where all Americans...
Yeah, when Disney decides to acknowledge a cultural phenomenon, that is because that cultural phenomenon has long since ceased to be in any way shocking or new or... outré at all. If Disney is acknowledging a cultural phenomenon, it's because, a generation ago, it already became, the accepted thing.
Can shop. Or
they are remarkably slow
to become a place, once again, where all Americans can shop.
I love to hear you say that because I think a lot of people are losing hope and they're thinking...
Why would they... It's interesting. They are winning so many fucking horrifying genocidal victories at the moment. You'd think they'd be celebrating. But I think they also realize that despite all their claims, that they're just inexplicable why people would... why companies would be advertising to normal people and not to fascist ghouls, they know that even their audiences would actually, according to polls, their core audience also doesn't like the stuff they'd be celebrating.
That these companies are never going to respond to the grievances that they have right now. And of course, you've responded to that not only in the press and media that you've created, but in the companies that you're continuing to create. What's next for you? You got Daily Wire, Jeremy's Razors, Jeremy's Chocolate.
Oh God, Jeremy's Chocolate.
You're creating alternatives all over the place. So where do you go from here?
Well, God, it's a whole alternative economy. You can shave and eat chocolate and listen to fascist lies.
At 7 o'clock, at 6 o'clock tonight, I'm hosting the Twitter live space for What is a Woman. We'll see what happens with it. And then at 8 o'clock...
Oh, I hope they got dragged to hell.
I'm shooting the first scene for the next Daily Wire Plus feature film, which I'm not at liberty to say
Yeah, because everybody will take the piss out of you.
any more about than that, but it's a huge undertaking. And then leaving the country for 6 months to shoot our Pendragon series. So we're really all in on this entertainment content right now, launching our children's entertainment later this year, which I'm very proud of. Other retail brands, Jeremy's Razors is a great.
Yeah, I mean, all he's doing now is plugging the shit that was plugged in that infomercial Unwoke Inc.
Grooming company for men. Seems like there's, 50% of the population who might also like a nice conservative grooming company.
Well, except probably not. Because if that were the line to be taking, you could be sure that all the major companies selling razors would already be taking it.
So hopefully we'll have something to announce about that very soon. I would say this one last thing though on the
मेरी हाल अच्छी है आपकी हाल क्या है
topic, which is you speak to the hopelessness that people feel, and that is certainly true.
I like to hear it when right-wingers feel hopeless. They should feel hopeless. They are yesterday's people. And the fact, and all you have to do is look at the numbers that they get when the far right actually tries to turn out on the street to see that even they don't even have the fucking courage of their convictions, because the whole reason they have built a following of people who are only doing this because they had heard that these particular convictions didn't require courage, because they haven't got any. And so when they see the first sign that there might be actual opposition, they just go home.
I feel like there's a real malaise in the country, especially since the midterms. A lot of people are giving up on the future. And the thing I'll say about that is that's a fool's game. There will be a future. If you give up, then there's certainty about what that future will be.
Well, yeah, which is why, let me just say, right-wingers watching this, please give up. Let us have a decent future. Give up, right now.
If you fight, if you stay motivated, if you stay engaged, well, we don't know what the future will be, but at least we'll have some sort of say.
And at least Jeremy will get a bunch of money off of you.
And what it might be. And it's just the only way to actually exist in this world, the only way to actually find.
Yeah, what gets me about this, I mean, there's so many things that get me about this. Just the shamelessness of his grifting. Like, I'm doing an actual useful thing. I have an actual useful project that is putting a classic of Marxist theory that has never been fully translated in full length to English into English. It's a Alexander Kollontái's 1909 book, The Social Basis of the Female Question. And there are all sorts of translations into English, none of them full length. None of them even close. Somehow nobody has translated the entire book until me. And I'm crowdfunding it because it's the only way I can afford to work on it, because that involves me turning down other work. And I always feel extremely bad about even, asking people to support it, because I hate asking people for fucking money, even when I'm doing it, even when it's a project that the people are actually interested in, that is actually, a net gain, because, we have more, our theoretical discussion is enriched by it. And I'm providing an excellent translation because I'm a fucking amazing translator. And I still feel bad about it. This guy is just rebranding some shit razors, overcharging a bunch of fascists for the pleasure of owning them. And he just talks about, he's like, yeah, I mean, and he's trying to talk about it like he's like this is some great service to humanity he's doing.
Happiness in this world. Your happiness can't be in victory, because victory isn't assured. Your happiness has to be actually in the fight and pouring out your best efforts and trying to build a world that represents the values that you believe in. And so don't let yourself fall.
Let me just say, since I've just brought up the Kollontai translation, that if you would like to contribute to it, you can do so by via the link that I'm about to put into chat. Or, well, either you can become a patron on my Patreon, which the Patreon command will take you to, or you can go to this link that I'm about to give you and make a direct contribution to help this project continue on. I'm on the second to last chapter, which is also the second longest chapter. I'm just shy of $900 out of $2,500 that I'm raising to cover the cost of translating it, and all contributions greatly appreciated. If this motherfucker is going to sell some bullshit razors and act like he's the second coming for doing it, then I need to be a little bit more shameless about plugging my fucking actually worthwhile project.
Be of good cheer. Be a happy warrior. Get out here and do something. And I think that's any other way.
Buy my
is just
bullshit.
Madness and despair. This is the only way to actually have a chance at winning.
I think that is a beautiful message to end on, Jeremy, and thank you so much for being here.
I just think it's beautiful
I would love
that
to talk
it's
to you
ending.
more, but if you're watching right now and you...
I'm not watching anymore. Jesus. Okay, that was painful. That was like deeply, let me see. What can we do? We've got 10 minutes left. Something relatively short. Oh, Caleb Maupin is angry about something. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna look at Caleb Maupin chiding us.
Here's something that was tweeted at me.
Oh wait, I have to give him the proper introduction. Hang on. I put way too much work in this fucking animation. Not to use it every time he comes up. There we go. Now let's hear what he's angry about today. He doesn't know yet either.
You're so smart for seeing through the big lie. I think you should get a free helicopter ride as an award for your intelligence.
Oh, okay. I thought this was going to be about either guillotine memes or we were going to be talking about the bogus-ass submarine that imploded on the way to see another vessel that rich people decided to cheap out, where rich people decided to cheap out on safety measures. But no, we're talking about his political allies, the people who make jokes about free helicopter rides, Nazis. And he's telling them that this isn't funny. This isn't funny, guys. Hey, it isn't funny anymore, guys.
Free helicopter ride. Now, what is this a reference to? Free helicopter ride. What is he referring to?
Are you going to be looping for a while? He's referring to the fact that the dictatorships in Chile and Argentina both had a policy of dropping people they murdered out of helicopters, and Nazis, like the people that he hangs out with, the people he's shared a platform with and defended sharing a platform with at the White Rage Against the War rally just like a month or two ago. Those are the people who are sharing these things, and he's and now he's appalled to find out that the people who are proud to, the tigers who rip off people's faces are ripping off people's faces.
Well,
I got that.
Let's take a look.
Wrong.
What does this free helicopter ride mean?
You already asked that. I already answered it.
Here's the helicopter meme. Free helicopter.
If you're having to tell your supposedly communist audience that it's not funny to celebrate the murders committed by two of the leading Latin American U.S.-backed fascist regimes, then you're not surrounded by communists. Yeah, I mean, that is what, see, they know the context, and if you look at the t-shirts that the shit's on, then you will see, they make it much clearer what they're talking about. But, I mean, the fact that he's explaining this, hello, demand better entertainment. Yeah, I know, it's a little bit of irony I did. I'm doing an irony.
Helicopter rides refers to extrajudicial killings, known as death flights, in which the military forces throw people from an aircraft into large bodies of water. Online, the phrase is often used by members of the alt-right in jokes about...
And now, keep in mind that this guy, every time anyone talks about the alt-right, he acts like the alt-right doesn't exist, or he just outright embraces them. This is why he is in a position where he has to chide people and say, now, you shouldn't joke about dropping communists and suspected communists out of helicopters after you murder them, because that's not funny. It's like, it's funny to them, dude. These are the people you've chosen. You've, like, alienated literally everyone who thinks that this is horrible, and so you're surrounded by people who look at this shit and say, ooh, they murdered communists and threw them out of a helicopter. It's really funny.
Executing their political opponents. During the Argentine Dirty War from 1976 to 1983, the military reportedly executed an estimated 10,000 people.
Actually, that number is way low. I mean, it may be 10,000 who were dropped into the ocean or the Rio de la Plata, but the number of people killed by Videla and the junta, backed by the United States, is actually more like 30,000.
Which were thrown.
I mean, what is the source here? Because reportedly employed by Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet, who ruled the country from 1973 to 1990. Like, reportedly, this isn't a rumor. I mean, this is well known that he was doing that. He started the practice. He was doing it before fucking Videla came to power.
Thrown from aircraft into the Atlantic Ocean. Additionally, the practice was reportedly used by Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet.
Can he, like, even try to pronounce these names correctly? Augusto Pinochet. Juliao, de la concha su madre. Así se pronuncia la weá. By the way, there was a great article by a good comrade and social reproduction theory theorist, Titi Bhattacharya, that I just would like to commend to your attention. Very well worth reading. She's also a supporter of the Cullen Thai Translation Project. I just dropped the link there. It is really, it was refreshing to see somebody say the things that she wrote.
Who ruled the country from 1973 to 1990. So libertarians tell us they believe in free speech, but they...
If only somebody had been around to tell you that these are the guys you're hanging out with, Caleb. What, like, maybe every single person who has... Every single fucking communist and any kind of leftist who has looked at the company you're keeping and thought that to try to engage you in good faith about it over the past, like, decade, if only they had pointed out that these are the kind of people. Like, he just recently, he went on a whole thing about how ridiculous it was to suggest that there was anything wrong with, sharing a platform with libertarians, including neo-Nazis who participated in the Charlottesville pogrom in 2017, because, like, I mean... Why would you have any problem with that? Why should communists have any problem with these people? And here he is, pretending to just now discover why communists would have.
They also believe that if you disagree with them, you should be killed. You should be dropped.
He's just discovering this. Is he, like, serious? He just noticed this shit. Did he think they didn't mean him? It isn't. They didn't just discover the free helicopter ride meme. I mean, on the origin thing, on May 29, 2015, is when the first apparently documented example of this meme happened. That is 8 fucking years ago. And he has not seen fit to remark on it until now. Apparently because he just thought that they didn't mean him? I can tell this is one that we're gonna have to come back to. It is time to wrap up, but this is one I absolutely must come back to it because it is clear this is fucking gold. So I think we'll be seeing this on Friday at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time when I come back. And if you enjoy the stream, please consider paying for the stream, which you can do using the tip command. And you will also be supporting the crowdfunded translation project, where I am doing the first full-length English translation of Alexandra Kollontai Socialnia Osnowy Женского Вопроса, Social Basis of the Female Question. I just dropped the tip link in the chat, and all contributions and all signal boosting the project, you can find posts on it on my Twitter feed, are greatly, greatly appreciated. Have a good night and good luck. Oh, wait a second. Did I just get... chat. Did somebody in chat just send me something? I don't want to give anyone's real name if they don't want it to be divulged on here, but let me just say merci. Merci. I really appreciate it. That makes me very happy. Ah, merci, c'était toi. Okay, thank you so much.